Oh, okay.
10 seconds, 24 hours. Okay. Alrighty then. A little late here. I do apologize about that. What am I looking at? There we go. Yep, looking right there. It has been a little while since we've done a live, so we will be doing some testing here, see if everything's working, make sure that the sound is working, maybe have some people show up. If not, that's fine. We'll do this for people to watch the replays. But let's see here. Hello, Julia.
Yep, that's good.
Okay, sound is good. We have our quickly thrown together list of things that we want to discuss on the live stream here. We all tested out. Everything sounds good. Okay. Do we want to get started?
Sure. So the chat should stay up the whole time on my iPad.
Okay. Sorry for the rough start here. Just trying to make sure everything's set up right so that we can get to this and get it done. So, how's everybody's Christmas been? Ours has been good. It's been a ride, and we have had good times with family. Oh, there we go. We got our timer reminder. We've had good times with family. We've been busy. We've been helping out with family a lot lately. And we have been trying to spend time as a family ourselves together. So, I guess getting started here, happy 7th day of Christmas for any of you that celebrate 12 days of Christmas. The new year is upon us. We are very much looking forward to seeing where we go this next year and where all of our friends and family are headed this next year. It's always a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Never quite turns out exactly like you expect it. I'm going to grab my water quick. All right. So, going into this new year, we have some goals, we have some plans.
Should I go get the baby?
Sure.
Okay.
We have some things to share with you about what we're going to be doing coming up. So let's just start with live streams first of all. Oh, we are 4 minutes in, and this live stream has already bored everybody out. But going forward, we'll get on top of these live streams. We'll get them down, and we want to begin doing a live stream every single Sunday. That's possible. That's not always possible, but this is the last Sunday of 2023. We wanted to start 2024 off early, get a live stream in. We're a little disjointed, a little disorganized, but we'll get this figured out. Going forward, our plan is to do a live stream every Sunday. It is not possible to do it on a Sunday. We'll do it on a Saturday, maybe on a Monday. We'll figure out another day to do a makeup live stream. And we'll just be here to talk about what's been going on our farm, in our lives, and sharing stuff like that. So that's the plan for the future, going into the new year with live streams. We had a baby. For all of you that didn't know, this is Gideon. Gideon is just about 3 months old now, just over.
Yep.
And he is a good, healthy little boy. We're really happy that he's here, and he's a little bit out of it right now, but normally he's got a smile pasted to his face. He has a just a cheery, warm disposition. Isn't that right?
He's just 8, so he's got a full belly, so he's very content right now.
Yep.
Just sit here.
Kind of just out of it. It's a good time to do a live stream.
Yep.
Yeah. Hi. Hi there. Hi. Yeah. Hi. What do you think? Are you going to spit up?
It sounds like he's going to spit up.
All right. We'll talk about not just Gideon, but revolving around the pregnancy and the birth, the hospital visit, and stuff like that. We have another goal that we're going to talk about here, and this is more of a personal goal, but it is going to get brought up and featured in our vlogs. It's going to get brought up, and we're going to be sharing stuff about it, not because we think you have to do this or everybody should be doing this, but it's just going to be part of our lives. And so our hope, our goal is to be a little more involved, involving a little bit more of our lives with the vlogs. We'll see how that goes. We want it to just happen naturally as we progress, as we go on. We'll see where it goes. I'm not making any promises. However, related to quite a number of things, health-wise, related to quite a number of things with the pregnancy and the birth, we are going to be changing our lifestyle quite drastically, actually, though we have been gearing up for this, and we've been gearing up toward this for probably the last 3 years. Moving to this farm was part of that, so that's one big box checked off our progress toward this goal. But we've known for a little while that we wanted to make a big change with our diet. So let's go back a number of years before, honestly, even before we realized we wanted to move back out to the country, I think, before we wanted to have a farm, have a homestead or a farmstead. I think we're going to start calling this a farmstead. It's not really a homestead, and it's not really a farm. I mean, it's a farm by the USDA standards, but it's not, I mean, I guess we can call it a farm if we want. If the USDA considers it a farm, it's a farm, right? But we also live here. A lot of the things we do here are not necessarily profit-driven. And so I think of this as kind of somewhere between a homestead and somewhere between a farm, so farmstead. But we're going to keep it a free warden farm. We're not going to change up anything. You start changing words around, changing names around, it gets really complicated really fast. We've done it. It's not fun. So free warden farm. But we're really more of a farmstead. So the big change that we're going to make, oh, I forgot, we got to go back. Keto. We were doing keto back in 2016 or something like that, 2017. I'm trying to remember when we started that. It wouldn't have been 2016. That's when we moved back to Minnesota. We moved from New York to Minnesota, and then we started looking south to Iowa. It would have been, okay, 2017, 2018. I think it would have been about 2018, wouldn't it have been?
Yes.
That we would have begun a journey down a keto way of eating. So for those who don't know, that means very low carb. That's like Ask 3 different people, you get 10 different answers, but it's basically about 15 grams of carbs or less a day. That's your limit. And some do a little more. Some people say they don't do any carbs, but keto didn't really work out for us the way that it wasn't sustainable for us. It just wasn't working with our lifestyle and how busy we were. So we kind of put that on hold. We put that on the back burner, and we thought someday maybe we'll go back to that. Well, that's about the time that we learned about the carnivore diet and how it's basically, it is a ketogenic diet. It just doesn't make use of any almond flour, doesn't make any use of any coconut flour. It doesn't make use of alternatives to a heavy carb-based diet. So the whole idea of a keto diet or a carnivore diet is to keep your body in ketosis where it is burning fat. It's using fat as a fuel. So you eat a high-fat or a high-protein, high-fat diet, very low carb. Whereas carnivore, the idea is no carbs. Really, like at the very most 15 grams of carbs a day, but most carnivores are going to say, no, you just don't eat any carbs. We're not going to try to be getting religious with this or anything. We are not going to try to be, zealous, diehard, religious carnivores. But that is our goal going into 2024. We want to eat an entirely carnivore diet. I have actually been eating that for over a month now. I've had a couple things here and there that aren't carnivore just because it didn't work out, but I was doing it. It was spur of the moment. I made the decision. I've got to do carnivore. And I did that for the health of my mouth, my dental health. I had problems there. We don't want to get too far into the weeds on this and too much into our reasons why we're doing carnivore. We have a plethora of reasons why we want to do carnivore: health related, mental health, as well as physical health related, whole bunch of different reasons. And we're not going to bore you in this live stream talking about that. But we've been doing a lot of research on carnivore. Since we moved here, we found out that based on the research, based on the evidence, it looks like carnivore is not a dangerous way of eating. It's not a dangerous diet. It's very healthy for you. A lot of the concerns about cholesterol, about red meat, about not getting enough carbohydrates in your diet. There's those concerns that are floating around out there. They turn out to be based on faulty research, faulty papers and such that are, unfortunately, they were sponsored by people who had certain interests. But enough of that. Suffice it to say, we've done our due diligence and we have looked into this extensively. I have a research background. I was trained to research, and so I consider, even though I don't have a background in a heavy background in nutrition, I have a small background in nutrition. Even though I don't have training in the medical field, even though I don't have training in physical science, physiology, biology, stuff like that, I would say I have a background in research. And if you apply what you learn using a background in research to just about any other field, although you may not be quite fluent with some of the terms, you may not be quite familiar with all the terms, you might need some help there. You might need to actually open up a dictionary and do a little bit of additional further education on the job kind of stuff. You can apply a lot of the skills that you have with a research background, which I think is just what anybody should have coming out of at least, with a high school degree. They should be teaching children how to research so that they can live a life, the rest of their life, based on obtaining knowledge to then apply that to their own lives in in an informed and responsible way. So, all that to say, we've done our due diligence looking into this. We have been doing copious amounts of research, hours and hours and hours. I can't even tell you how many, over the last several months, and even before that. You know, as things would come along, I'd have questions, I would delve into that. Anyway, moving on. Carnivore, I've already discussed what that is. It's basically you've got different types of carnivore, but here's the type of carnivore that we're going to go on. We're not going to do the lion diet. That's a pretty popular one. You hear about carnivore, you've probably seen, oh, lion diet. That's a pretty popular one where you just eat beef, salt, and water, and that is it. Or at least ruminants. So beef, goat, sheep, or lamb. You know, anything that chews its cud is a ruminant. It's regurgitating that food back up. It's got, you know, 4 quadrants to its stomach. It's fermenting the food that it eats and then regurgitating it up, chewing it, swallowing it again to re-ferment it again and again and again until it gets every last little bit of nutrient out of that food source. And that is not what we're doing primarily. We are going to be eating primarily ruminants, but we're also going to include in our diet pork. We're going to include poultry such as chicken, turkey, duck, and eggs. We're going to include dairy in our diet, at least initially, because our diet does revolve heavily around dairy. I do consider it an animal product. So milk, cream, sour cream, yogurt, so the fermented stuff, cheeses, real cheese, not American cheese, not, you know, Kraft macaroni and cheese or anything like that. But we're going to be cutting out all the carbs from our diet. So if it doesn't come directly from an animal or something that an animal produces, we're not going to be eating it. And things that are generally considered food. You know, I've seen people say, well, animals poop too. Are you going to eat that? No, we're not going to eat the animal manure. That's silly. That's the waste that even their bodies can't use. We're only going to be making use of the proteins and the fats and the minerals and the vitamins that meat is so densely packed with. It is even, you know, some people will argue that mushrooms are the densest, most nutritionally dense food on the planet. That is true if you don't account for all the anti-nutrients, all the lectins, all the mycotoxins. Even edible mushrooms have toxins in them, just at such a low amount that you'd have to eat way more than you possibly could. But just because something doesn't have enough toxin in it to hurt you or to kill you doesn't mean that you want to be ingesting that over the long term. I mean, that's your choice. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I'm just saying that's something that I've considered. But meat is the densest, the most nutritionally dense, complete product, food product on the on the earth. So when you look, oh, it's also bioavailable. It's very easy for our bodies to absorb it. That's the other thing. Okay, enough preaching. Enough teaching, enough lecturing here. We are going to be doing, excuse me, a animal products and animal meat and products carnivore diet. And that goes for the entire family. And yes, we've researched, is it safe for children? Is it safe for infants who are beginning to eat? Just beginning to eat solid food. Absolutely, 100%. I have no doubt that it's safe. There are numerous examples of people doing this and their children not only surviving on a carnivore diet, but thriving and doing better than average, which we're not really concerned about whether our kids do better than average or not. We want them to be them, but we want them to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And it seems that people who are on a carnivore diet do become the best versions of themselves that they can. And I can attest to that personally, both having done the ketogenic diet, I was feeling a lot better, but it was not sustainable. So we went off that. And now, having done carnivore for over a month, I can definitely attest to the fact that eating a carnivore diet, eating nothing but animal products, meat, so beef, bacon, eggs, butter, cheese, milk, cream, chicken, turkey, pork, all of these things have been giving me such great health benefits that we are now going to make this a family endeavor that for the next year we eat carnivore. At least for the next 90 days, we're going to transition into it, and then we'll see how it goes from there. We'll test it out, see how it goes from there, and we may make some modifications after 90 days, but they do say that it really takes about 90 days for you to get through, and some people say 6 months, but we're going to shoot for 90 days here to get past all the hormonal imbalances that you have in your system, to get past all of the just your gut biome adjusting to the food. Now, some people adjust really fast in a matter of days to weeks. Some people it takes a couple of months. It just depends on how sick you are. um, so why are we doing this? We are going to talk a lot more about why we're going to do this. I've already kind of shared some of those reasons: dental health, mental health, physical health, energy, various physical problems that we have, that we personally experience. So whether that's some leaky gut, whether that's some IBS, whether that's energy levels just being really low, fatigue, brain fog. I don't think that 2 months ago I would have been able to sit here and do this so far at the level that I have been. Now, I've got a long ways to go, but I've just been kind of riffing here, talking clearly and not having to search for a lot of words. It seems to me that 2 months ago I was in a dense fog. I remember shooting videos out on the or trying to shoot videos. So here's the other thing too. We tried to shoot quite a few videos in that time lapse between when we last shot a video over 3 months ago and the first video that we shot just a couple of weeks ago. Since then, I actually went out and I tried to do a bunch of videos, but whether it was from certain things that were going on in our life or whether it was from the dense mental fog that I just felt like I was in, none of those videos panned out, and I just didn't want any of those coming out because I was honestly kind of embarrassed about how I was presenting. And so since then, though, I'll tell you, my mental fog has just about completely gone away. My mental clarity has spiked, and it's almost throughout the entire day, from the moment I wake up until the moment I am too tired to stay awake anymore. I have great mental acuity. Now, there's a whole bunch of different reasons why we're going to do this, and I think we'll probably share that in another video or another live in the future. We'll talk about why we're doing carnivore. And then we've already mentioned when we're doing carnivore, it's going to be for the next year. So that's our journey going forward into this year. We're starting tomorrow. So we actually did have I had some non-carnivore stuff today. I know, not right, but we had some non-carnivore food items. We had some clam chowder, which has onions or shallots and some celery in it. But otherwise, it's a fairly carnivore heavy meal, right? You've got the milk, the cream, you have oysters. We had some oyster stew today, so good meat item, not so good on the carb side. However, moving right along, we are also going to enjoy a nice, rich French silk pie today. And then tomorrow, we're going carnivore. 90 days, very strict carnivore. After that, we'll adjust as we need to. A couple of things that we're adding to our carnivore diet are some electrolytes, so electrolyte water or electrolyte drops or mineral drops, just because meat today can't be fortified the way cereals and grains and stuff have been fortified with those things. And honestly, most of us are deficient in minerals, even though a lot of our foods are fortified. For example, if you ever see little white flecks on your fingernails there, little white flecks like I've got all over, that means you have a zinc deficiency. Well, I haven't been doing minerals since I've been doing carnivore. Adding the minerals in is going to help take care of the zinc deficiency that's showing up. Actually, I've got quite a bit there. That's telling me that the meat that we're eating is deficient in minerals, and that is that's at no fault to the animals. That's completely the fault of the way that we have been farming and ranching for the last 100+ years. We have been depleting the soil. We've not been farming responsibly. That's why we are trying to farm responsibly here. And even though we supplement our animals with minerals, they are still going to be somewhat deficient in minerals when it comes to what we need, what they need. And ultimately, it's a product of the last 100 years of farming and how we have so depleted and starved the land. We basically mined the land of all the minerals through various farming practices and never letting the land rest and never regenerating the land and so on and so forth. But ultimately, we are going to be some form of carnivore for the next year is our goal. And it just so happens, by the way, almost happy World Carnivore Month. It just so happens, I didn't even realize this until a few days ago, or a couple of weeks ago. It was actually before that I made the goal, or I had this goal in mind. And but World Carnivore Month is January 1st through the end of January. So that's kind of exciting. It just happened to work out. Complete coincidence. We weren't planning it that way. We weren't like, oh, when's World Carnivore Month? Or is there a Carnivore Day or Carnivore Week? We should start then. No, it was just, so that's according to Dr. Sean Baker, I think. He started that whole thing, and all the carnivore doctors out there have jumped on. So Dr. Anthony Chafee, Dr. Ken Berry, those are two of the biggest ones that I listen to, that I've been getting a lot of our information from and looking to find other resources to do further research papers, books, articles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we're pretty excited about that. We're pretty happy that January is here. We're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate ending 2023, moving into 2024. And we are going to do that with a lot of non-carnivore stuff, a treat, a reward, if you would. I don't know. We're going to tease ourselves. We're going to tempt ourselves going into the new year. I don't know that that's recommended that you do what we're doing just before you go on a carnivore diet. I think they suggest that you transition into it if you have time. But since I've been doing this for the last month, and we've got a lot of good information about how to do it properly so that you don't end up with what they call the keto flu, or some call it the impending doom. Yeah, I felt a little bit of that starting carnivore this over a month ago. Never really got the keto flu, but I did go through a time of just a transition as my hormones, the chemicals in my body were balancing out and adjusting. And it wasn't fun, but we've learned a lot to hopefully help the rest of the family transition into that. And we'll see where it goes. We'll give you updates on that. We'll probably be talking a little bit more about that here and there. It's not our intention to make that a part of the channel, even though I've just kind of word vomited all over regarding this subject. We're just happy and excited. So moving on, we had some people ask about our beef herd share. So let me see if I can explain the beef herd share just a little bit to everybody. Whether this is something that you want to try to do yourself, if you have a small herd, or whether this is something that you want to try to find in your area. There's all sorts of different ones. So I can tell you what we're doing, but I can't necessarily tell you that this is the way it's going to be if you have a beef herd share in your area. That's going to be something for you to, I mean, you're going to have to figure that out for yourself. Unfortunately, everybody does it a little bit different. So I can give you kind of the outline of what to expect and then specifically how we're running things. But ultimately, a beef herd share is very much like a milk cow share or a dairy herd share. It's basically there are a number of animals, whether that's 1 to 100 or more. And the herd is owned by people who have invested into the herd. They own an interest in the herd. They own a share of the herd. So think of stock market. You own a share of a company. If you own enough shares, you have a say in how things go in that company, maybe a little bit somehow, maybe, I don't know. But you definitely have a right to the profits earned by the company. So as the profitability of the company increases, so does the value of your share. Same thing with a beef herd share, not so much with a milk cow share, but with a beef herd share, you own an interest in that beef herd. This is very often done with animals that are going to be producing other animals. Excuse me. So in other words, cows, right? In other words, you own part of a cow, or you own a cow, or you own a number of cows. You may own 3 3/4 of a cow based on the amount of shares that you own. Think about it. It's not quite like that, but think about it that way. So for example, we have 2 cows in our herd, plus a bull calf. And so there are currently 8 shares available in our herd, and we own 4, and other people own another 4 shares. In other words, we own one of the cows, somebody else owns another cow. The agreement is that we will board the cows or house them, care for them, feed them, make sure that they have clean bedding to be on, make sure they have water, all the things. We will take care of the cows, but we don't own the cows. Not all of them anyway. So there are 8 shares available. 4 of those shares are owned by somebody else. We happen to own the other 4 shares. As this herd grows, let's say one of these heifers has a calf, and if that calf is a bull calf, then we will make that calf a steer, or we could leave it a bull, or we could make it a steer and sell it, make it a steer and slaughter it after 24 months. But that calf is owned, a portion of that calf is owned based on the amount of shares, based on how many new shares are produced by this calf being born after so many weeks or months, because you want to make sure that the calf is viable and that the calf is going to survive and is healthy. Otherwise, no shares are produced, and it's just that year is a loss. But as the calf grows, whether it's a heifer or a bull, or you make a steer, somebody's is going to own a portion of that new calf. So if you have, for example, in our herd, there's 8 shares available. If both our bred heifer, who hasn't had a calf yet, and our bred cow, who has previously had a calf, so she's now called a cow, if they both have a calf in 2024, that creates 4 new shares per calf, so 8 shares total. Whoever owns, let's say we own 4 of those shares, which we do. 2 calves are born. That means we get half of the available new shares. So we now have 8 shares in the herd, and there are an additional 8 shares out there, whether owned by somebody else or not. But we own 4 of the shares, other people own another 4 of the shares, so in this scenario, we would gain an additional 4 shares plus the responsibility for the boarding fee, and I'll talk about that in a second, because it's not just buy into the herd and then you're set. No, you got to actually maintain your shares through a boarding fee, monthly boarding fee. But we would gain those 4 shares from one of the calves, and the other 4 people, those additional 4 shares, the other not 4 people, the other people who own the other 4 shares, those additional 4 shares created by the other calf would then be divvied up between all of them. Okay. Now, if they don't want to take on the responsibility of the herd maintenance fee, the monthly maintenance fee per share, they can divest of their interest in that calf. They can maintain their interest in the cow, but they can sell off or discard their interest in the calf, which means somebody else has an opportunity now to buy into the herd. The way that we have it set up is a share costs a little over $500. I don't remember right off the top of my head. I think it might be $570 per share. So we'll just put that figure down there. $570 per share. So if you wanted to own 4 shares, you're looking at, not super good at math here off the top of my head. Well, that would be 2,140 $280. $2,280 is the buy-in for 4 shares. If you want to sell off your shares, so let's say you owned all 4 shares of that new calf, you could sell each of those shares for $570. Now, the way that we have the agreement written up, and I see a question down there, I'll get to that in just a second. The way that we have the agreement written up is that we have first right of refusal if any other member of the herd share wants to discard their shares. Okay, so that means we have first right to buy that. And if we don't want to buy that, then we can facilitate a sale to somebody else, or that person could take an agreement to somebody else and say, here, if you want this, sign it, pay up. The money doesn't even have to go through us, I don't think, if I remember correctly, all the fine print and stuff like that. But that is basically, you recoup all the money that you spent initially on your herd, on your purchase of a share. And then the next year that cow is going to have another calf. And let's see here. If I remember correctly, it's the boarding fee per share is $20 a month. So that is $240 a year per share. So $240 a year per share is what you are spending. So over 2 years, you're waiting for that share to produce 2 calves. You've recouped your money on your initial buy-in, right? After 2 years, you have spent, you've made your money back on your initial purchase, maybe and then some too, because with inflation and all that, these prices might have to go up. So $240 times 2, $480. So you're going to more than make your money back, because, do this real quick, 2,280 minus 480, so that's going to be 0, and that's 8. So you're going to make $1,800 your second year. Now, this isn't a get-rich kind of deal, right? It's not a get-rich-quick kind of deal. It is a good, honest investment. The real reason you would invest in a beef herd share is to get beef. at a drastically reduced price. To own a cow who is going to year after year potentially produce beef or produce another heifer, which then can produce beef, more beef, or to be able to sell that beef, I guess, if you don't need it all. Actually, that's the basis for somebody who bought into our herd share. They said, I don't really think I need all that beef, though. That's fine. You don't need to keep it all. You can sell it. So anyway, that's basically how the herd share works as far as a monetary, from a monetary standpoint. So yeah, it's kind of a pyramid scheme. And now I wouldn't call it a pyramid scheme as much as, because you do have a real product, right? In pyramid schemes, but I get your joke. And the thing is, if somebody else comes into the herd, they own an actual product. They're not owning. I don't even understand how pyramid schemes work, but there is an actual product here, and you receive beef or you receive profits from the animal if it's sold. So here's a question: What happens if a cow calf is suddenly lost, like from bloat? Okay, so let's start with a cow. If we say there's 8 shares in a beef herd, we're taking on a little bit of a risk doing this for sure. So if a cow's lost, that's a risk that somebody takes going into this. In fact, it's right there in our herd share agreement. To buy a share is they have to recognize that this is an animal. Animals can get diseases. Animals can die. Accidents can happen. Even though we as the herd managers and part owners are taking every measure to make sure that doesn't happen, that is unfortunately just something that could happen. They could die, and then the value of the share is lost. It's cut in half at least, right? So if you have, like we do, starting out with 2 cows and a bull calf, if that bull calf dies, nobody's going to get beef from it, unless you can salvage the beef. You know, if the cow dies from bloat or if it dies from complications in pregnancy, then there's still 8 shares in the herd. It's just that now our interest is everybody's interest in the herd has been reduced in value because the value of the entire herd has been reduced. So it is very much like the stock market. It is very much like buying a share in anything. If profits plummet, if the market tanks, if something dies, there's a loss there, and that is just something that everybody has to know up front that they're signing up for. So currently, we're not trying to sell this beef share. We're not trying to sell any shares in our beef herd right now because we don't really have any more shares to sell. We want 4 shares. Other people want those other 4 shares, and they've purchased them. So we don't have any really more shares to sell at the moment, unless we want to reduce our interest in the herd, and I'm not interested in that at the moment. But it is something, that is a very important thing to consider when buying into any, whether it's a dairy herd share or buying into a beef herd share. There is a risk of loss there, real risk of loss there. So you got to know that you can trust the people that you're going into this with, that they're not going to be mistreating the animals, that they're going to actually be taking care of them, they're not going to be neglecting them, and that you know that they have a history of being able to take care of animals. Also, it helps when you find a beef herd share made up of animals that are usually seen as, more often than not, healthier on average. So what we have in our herd is nothing but Aberdeens, lowline Angus. So they're a smaller framed cattle, They are about, well, I wouldn't say half the size of a, they're not a small animal. They get up to, 11, 1,200 pounds, but they're a smaller framed animal. They have much easier birthing, so you have less risk of loss due to cesareans. Cesareans are up, by the way, with cattle. Okay, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but a lot of the large frame breeds, they are very prone to hard, difficult births. So some of these really big animals, like the big black Angus and the maybe the, well, I'm not going to speak where I don't have knowledge, but I do know that there's animals out there like the black Angus that are very prone and susceptible to difficult pregnancies and births, to the point where they have to actually they have to do a lot of cesareans on these larger framed cattle. So one of the reasons that we went with the Aberdeen is because they're a healthy, uh, they're just a healthy, vital, not a healthy vital. They're a healthy animal that they're just full of vitality. They are very, uh, they're not prone to disease. They're not prone to um, a lot of the problems that the larger animals have, the health defects and such like that. In fact, they've begun to breed as kind of a herd moderator Aberdeen bulls with the larger framed beef cows, because they help bring the overall weight and risk that these animals pose due to that are posed to these animals due to the size and weight of these animals. Um, when you breed a little bit smaller, you get a little bit better health, and maybe actually a lot better health, because this has become a trend. So Aberdeens, they're not really something that you can market. I wouldn't really say you want to go into Aberdeens, pure-blooded Aberdeens, or uh, just full-bred Aberdeens for large-scale, um, the industrial food complex or the industrial meat complex market. Excuse me. What you would want to get into Aberdeens for is if you have an alternative market. If you have an alternative market, now you can market your own beef. Now this would be a really good animal to have producing on your land. Basically, how the math works is, if you took two full-size steer, you got your two full-size steer, or two large-framed steer. We'll call them large-framed because they're not really full-size. An Aberdeen that grows to be 900, 1,000 pounds, that's full-size. They can get larger than that too. But you've got your large-framed cattle, and you've got your um, smaller framed cattle, your medium framed cattle, let's say. Now, you take two of those large framed cattle, right, and you slaughter them out. Say you've got two 1,200 pound steers, okay? You slaughter them out, each of them at 1,200 pounds, and then you take three Aberdeen steers. These are going to be medium framed steers. You slaughter them out. You are going to get just a little bit more meat from the three Aberdeen steers that were 900 pounds. If I didn't say that, that's the amount we're working off from here. You're going to get quite a bit more. I think you should, yeah, you'd get, let's see here. Because actually, the other thing that you don't realize, you don't consider, is the carcass. Okay, when you get that carcass, you take the carcass down to nothing but, well, you get rid of the hide, you get rid of the head, you get rid of the hocks, so they don't have any feet, maybe the tail, and now you've got you eviscerate it, you take out the guts, and now you've got just the meat and the skeletal structure that's holding the meat together. Okay, take this animal and break it down for meat. The large framed cattle, a 1,200 pound animal. 2 of those is going to give you a little less meat than what 3 of the medium framed 900 pound Aberdeen steer are going to give you. And that is because you get a lot more meat with a lot smaller bone. And that's not, so I'm not, yeah. When you take the 1,200 pounds, I need your calculator here. Okay, take 1,200 pounds. I believe you multiply that by 0.68. You get 816 pounds hanging weight. So 816 pounds hanging weight from a 1,200 pound animal. What you actually get for meat from that animal is going to be less. You multiply that again by 0.625. Oh, I did that wrong. It's 0.625. So there's 2 weights that you got to consider, and this is how you do the formula for this is you take the total weight of the animal, so 1,200 pounds, multiply that by 0.625, okay? So you're going to get 750 pounds hanging weight from a 1,200 pound steer. Now 900 pounds times 0.625 is 562.5 times 3 equals 1687.5 and 1,500 for the 2 large frame ones. Okay, so you've got 1,500 pounds for the 2 large frame steer. You've got 1,687.5 pounds for the 3 medium frame steer. Now, what you might be asking, well, what's the big deal? Of course, 2 large frame steer versus 3 medium frame steer. I would expect that you get a little bit more with the hanging weight. But where these numbers really start to depart is when you break it down into actual usable cuts of meat. So from 1,500 pounds or 750 pounds, either way, you're going to take that and you're going to multiply that by 0.68. 0.68. So that's going to give you only 1,020 pounds of usable meat from the 2 large frame steers. Okay, now let's take the 1,687.5 pounds that we have for hanging weight from the 3 medium frame steer. Now, what did I say you multiply that hanging weight by? 0.68. Well, actually, we're going to multiply it by 0.75. Or is it 7.2? We'll do 7.2 just to be a little on the conservative side here. I think it's 0.75, but we'll do 0.72. It's a little bit more meat that you're actually going to get, usable meat per pound of hanging weight from the medium frame steer. Now, why is that? Because they have a smaller bone structure. They don't have as much bone. I've slaughtered 2 large steer, and I can tell you just by looking at the bull that we have out in the pasture, he is a large framed animal. He's got really thick bone. I mean, the bone structure on that guy is crazy. There is so much bone on these animals, you just don't get as much meat. So take the smaller framed animals with the lighter bone structure, not necessarily weaker bone structure, but they just don't need as much bone to carry around all this weight. So times 0.72 is what I said we were going to do it by, even though I think it's a little more than that. From these 3 steer, you're going to get 1,200 15 pounds of meat. So you get almost an extra 200 pounds. In the way that we butcher, you're going to get probably even more than that, because we don't let anything go to waste. There's a lot of waste that goes on. You know, I don't want to badmouth the butcher, any butcher, but the way that they do it conventionally, the way they do it modernly, there's just a lot of things that go to waste. But that's based on the market and why, you know, how they sell these things. So they're selling the meat to a particular market that wants a particular thing. We're a little more frugal. We eat things that a lot of other people might not eat. You know, so take that into account as well. We'd probably get even more than this, but just in general, you're already going to get an extra 200 pounds or 195 pounds from these 3 steer. Now here's where the magic happens. Okay, you might think, well, yeah, but you still had to raise an additional steer to get only an extra 200 pounds. So what's the deal? The deal is, it doesn't cost you any more to raise these 3 Aberdeens as it does to raise the 2 large frame steer. The 2 large frame steer eat as much as 3 Aberdeens, but the Aberdeens give you a little extra meat for your trouble. 200 pounds. They're not as big. So they're not as big. They're not as dangerous. I mean, they could still hurt you.
Yeah. They're just not as scary when you compare them to our sheep. They're just a little bit taller than our sheep.
Yeah, but they're thick.
Oh yeah. Good meat on them.
Yep. They've got a good body on them. Good carcass there, walking around on 4 legs.
Julie was just doing this math with her pig.
Ah, nice.
Her pig.
I'd be interested to hear about how that turned out, because
she's still around.
What's still around?
The pig.
Oh, the pig. Okay. Well, whenever the pig isn't around, I'd be interested to see what. So the same kind of math can happen with pigs. Okay, the pigs that we have a lighter bone density, so we're going to get more meat off from them. They have a smaller bone structure, I should say, not a lighter bone density. So we do have to make sure that they have the proper minerals, otherwise they could break a leg. They don't get as big, but I do think it would be interesting to compare pigs in this way to see if 3 of our pigs produce the same amount or more of what. Wow, they don't really do pigs the same way either. They want pigs to be about 225 pounds, really close to that, because of the mechanical way that the automated mechanical way that they slaughter pigs today.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
Unless you're doing home butchery.
Yeah, but if you're doing home butchery, you know, is a pig that gets up to, 600 pounds, is that really better? Or if you have 2 pigs that get up to 600 pounds, or you got 3 pigs that get up to, let's say, only 250 pounds, 300 pounds for, smaller pigs, but more of them. I wonder what the food cost difference is going to be between those smaller pigs and the larger pigs when it comes time to slaughter. We have found that here, even though I've got the tractor, even though I've got a lot of the equipment necessary for butcher, a large framed steer is very difficult to butcher. The same would go with a very large pig. It would just be way more difficult to butcher. And the smaller animals, even though they're a little bit smaller, they're not going to eat necessarily the same amount of food that a larger framed animal is going to eat. And they might actually have a lighter bone structure, a little smaller bone structure, which means there's more meat on that carcass for you. That carcass isn't having to carry around a whole bunch of extra meat and fat weight. It's not also having to bulk up bone, which it then has to be able to carry around. So, it's really interesting when you get into this. There is a reason why people who do this. This is the way that they've been doing it for years and years and years, and they've made those animals, they've bred those animals to grow larger and larger and larger. There is a reason why they do that, because in their market, on that scale, that's what's profitable for them. But it's very very difficult to get into that market as a new guy. So anyway, I could go on and talk about this the rest of the lives,
Yeah.
but we
let's
are
keep it
just
very
about
short.
out of time because we wanted to keep this to about an hour, and I see,
Yep, we're almost there.
oh, we have been actually live for over 60 minutes now.
Yep. So
But
over 50 hours.
since we actually started, um, officially started live, we had to do the ramp up. We've got about a minute left. So that's what's new with us. If you're just joining us and you want to go back, we did introduce Gideon here. Um, he'll be in some of the vlogs and stuff too in the future. Gideon, our new baby boy, born September 29th of last year. No, this
It's still this
this
year,
year. It's
honey.
still this year. I
It's
want to
still
get to
this year.
2024 already. Carnivore. We're going carnivore for the rest of the year. We talked a lot about that and our beef herd share. We just got done talking about that and the reason why we chose the breed, the Aberdeens. Um, the reason why we chose that breed and what our plans are for the future of that, or at least you can assume that from what we shared. So, in the future, we may have some beef shares available. They are going to be available only to people who are willing to actually show up and get the beef from off farm, directly from our farm. Or so, in other words, you got to be local or you got to make the drive. But regardless, if you want to go back and check out any of that information that we shared already, be our guest. Do you have anything to add before we depart?
Nope, just that we're gonna try to be consistent with the lives,
Yep.
and so we'll probably go into more detail with the lives coming forward. So we just lightly touched. We lightly touched on subjects that we want to go more in depth on, and so we'll set aside a special, or like, so for say next week, we're going to talk about more in depth about carnivore or beef sure, and so we'll go more into it if we feel like there's interest, or we'll talk about something else. But we want to try to stick to one subject, oh, two for a live, right? We don't want to cover multiple things.
I mean, yeah, there'll probably be one major subject, and we might kick around a couple other things in there.
Yeah.
You never know.
And then if someone wants to, like, if there's people who want to ask us questions, like, just to have a live specifically for our questions and answers, we've probably set that up too. So, but yeah, I think that's it. We are still going to be producing the regular vlogs. Um, so the lives won't be the only thing that we do. We will still be doing the vlogs that everyone's used to. So,
Yep. There you have it.
yep.
We'll see you next Sunday. Keep an eye out for a new video coming into the new year. I don't think we're going to get one out today. We've been shooting some footage. You may see the food behind us and stuff. You might have been wondering, what the heck?
What in the world is going on in
All
your
of this
guys'
stuff.
house?
Okay, so we've been cleaning house real quick here.
Yep.
In preparation for Carnivore, we've been cleaning house. That was actually part of the video. Um, anytime you're going to start something new, like a new diet or a new lifestyle, where you could be tempted to regress or backslide or whatever into your old ways. It's really helpful if you just get rid of anything in your house. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody in our household has major carb addictions or sugar addictions. We probably do here. But rather than find out by coming down in the middle of the night and finding a child munching on sugar, like we did when they were little, have you
Yeah.
ever seen that with your kids? We've seen it. They've had a whole like container of sugar because we get the bag of sugar and we pour it off into a container and then seal it. And we found them like eating the sugar right out of
I have
there.
found the brown sugar container with a spoon in it in my child's room.
Yep,
So that is
yep.
how bad it gets sometimes.
So
So
we're just going to not even present the possibility of that sort of temptation for them. It's going to be difficult for several days, maybe weeks, as they adapt. as they go through the carb withdrawals. Yeah,
Julie's daughter, she got her drinking syrup.
syrup.
Yeah,
Yeah, maple
that
syrup.
that might be if it's like real maple syrup, that's actually better than sugar. So, at least you chose something a little bit better. It's not as bad as honey. I mean, what would be worse? Like if it was like real sugar or real honey compared to real maple syrup,
Yeah.
but better than
One
sugar.
second, I'll be right back.
But no, actually, this is going to be some of it is going to family members who said that they want it. Others we will be throwing away or storing it somewhere else for the future. We're not getting rid of it because it's not going bad anytime soon. This is pink.
We have 3 5-gallon buckets full of grain, full of a little bit of flour. We're not going to feed them a bunch of flour just because that, I don't know, it's just powder. It's going to blow away in the wind.
Powder.
We've got some old energy bars there.
Cereal.
Just
chocolate,
a little bit of candy. We're not,
a little bit of popcorn. A lot of it is just like your cereals. So it's all stuff that the pigs can handle. But yeah, that's a lot of it is going to the pigs. More shelf stable foods we will hang on to, but we'll just put it in the basement. And it's not stuff that the kids would want anyways, like canned green beans and stuff. So.
Oh, high fructose corn syrup. It wasn't even maple syrup.
Oh my. What would that even? I've never had that raw, so I don't even know.
It's really sweet.
Oh, okay.
I've never had it just straight, but I know it's really, really sweet. Because corn syrup is sweet. High fructose corn syrup is basically, it's that refined, and so.
For pig scraps, Julie, you can pretty much give a pig anything you would eat.
Yep.
For pig scraps, and even then, maybe something you wouldn't eat. I mean, it's a little weird to give them pork.
I don't like the idea of giving them pork. Just personally, I don't think there's any problem with it as long as you're not giving them pig brains.
Yeah.
But it always makes me a little concerned just because of you've got the mad cow disease, and you've got what do they call it when sheep basically end up with the sheep version of mad cow disease? But and that can happen to pigs too. So
well, just like humans can go like a little crazy if they, eat another human flesh.
Yeah, we feed our pigs lots of old eggs. If we don't want to eat the eggs, that's the one thing too. Like we have fed our pigs some pretty nasty old stuff. I've fed them rotten eggs. They love it.
Yeah.
And we've never had a problem with it.
They will, but they choose what they do and do not want. I know that they don't eat raw potatoes and they don't eat raw carrots, or at least if they do, they didn't like the ones we gave them. But like raw onions and raw potatoes, they lots of they didn't mess with it. Or cabbage, I think too. They didn't eat cabbage.
The one thing you have to be careful of with pigs, so this is the only thing, is basically the general rule is they can eat anything that you would eat or can eat. Might not want to give them a lot of sugar. That'll really put on the fat. You might not want a really, really fat pig. Too much fat is not a good thing. So maybe keep the sugar low. We do have some sugar out there, but amongst our 15 pigs that are going to devour that stuff, that's not going to be too much sugar for them. But the one thing that's really dangerous for them is salt. They can overdose on salt. So if you have some food, let's say you made some potato stew or something, and you oversalted it, and there's no way you can bring the salt level down, and you don't want to eat it, be very wary of giving anything like that to pigs. That could kill them, or that could cause serious health problems. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it is, but that's the one thing that I was made aware of and cautioned against, was ever feeding them added salt. So if it's got added salt to it, if you look at that label and you see really, really high sodium, or you see salt in the ingredients, maybe, if you can taste the salt in it, it's probably going to be dangerous for the pigs, from what I understand. So that's the one thing to be cautious of is, some butter, salted butter, probably not going to hurt them, but they don't need a lot of salt, and they can, the one difference between pigs and humans is we have sweat glands, and we need a lot of salt because we sweat out a lot of electrolytes. Pigs can actually get too much built up in their system, and it does wonky things to them. So that's the only thing I'd caution you on there is watching out for salt. Otherwise, we've fed them like probably everything except for pork because I think that's weird. I don't want to eat a cannibal.
Chickens are bad enough.
Yeah, when the chickens eat their own, that's weird enough. We find a dead chicken out there that's been picked apart. Ugh.
Yeah.
But whatever. I just try not to think about that part. But I'm not going to eat a pig that's eaten another pig.
Yeah.
That's too weird for me. I don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll eat a lot of weird things, but not that. Um,
So yeah, we could probably wrap it up here.
yeah, we'll wrap it up. So
Be on the lookout for, we'll probably at least put out one more long form vlog, this week, coming week. Hopefully two, but for sure one. So
we have kids
we
gathering
have kids
around.
gathering, so it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, they
We're
must want
being
something.
surrounded.
All right, folks. Well, thank you very much. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Hug somebody. God bless. Everything is going to be okay. Peace. Awkward moment while I try to figure out how to shut this off.
Here, exit.